So it's not like a hard stretch to get access to their phone records.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And then what can they get? Do they get text records? They can listen to phone
Oh,
calls?
they get everything. People think, okay, oh, we're gonna delete the message, I'm gonna wipe the phone clean. That is bullshit, my man. Everything is recorded.
Hey everybody, I have Steve Padullo with me. He is a New York City cop, retired now,
Retired,
correct?
brother, retired.
Right on. Thank you for sitting down. Thank you for taking the time with
thanks
me
for
to
having
do
me.
this today. I wanted to talk to you. I know that you have a great interview with Ian on Ian's channel, and I encourage everybody to go watch your story. But today, I wanted to specifically talk to you about your work in narcotics.
Sure.
So how hard is it once you guys have somebody's name and you guys have established somebody's identity, how hard is it for you to get a warrant or access to their phone?
Okay, so to clarify something, I was in the narcotics division, but I was on a desk. I didn't work in the narcotics unit per se, but it's very easy to start piecing things together. Once you have one bit of information, it just opens up the floodgates. And to get the warrants and everything, it's pretty easy for the officers once they have solid information to get that satisfied, to get that done.
So it's not like a hard stretch to be able to get somebody who has some type of evidence against them to get access to their phone records.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's you need to have, obviously, this judge is signing off. He or she needs to see what evidence you have to warrant, quote unquote, to get a warrant or access to someone's records. But every officer that goes in front of a judge, they have pretty solid proof of what they need, and they sign off on what they have to sign off on.
And then what can they get? Do they get text records? They can listen to phone calls?
Oh, they get everything. People think, okay, oh, we're gonna delete the message, I'm gonna wipe the phone clean. That is bullshit, my man. Everything is recorded, and people don't realize that. People don't, oh, I'm gonna wipe my phone clean. No, no way. Every phone, every keystroke, everything, every search engine you ever did on your phone, everything's recoverable, everything. And people don't realize that, and that's how they get nailed.
So once they get enough evidence, search warrants, how hard are search warrants to get?
See, I can't give a definite answer on that because it depends on the actual evidence that you go in front of a judge to obtain. But once the evidence is presented in a manner that satisfies the judge's, I have a word I'm looking for, the judge's threshold, so to speak.
Yeah.
Then they sign off on it right away, 1, 2, 3, and they hit, they'll execute that warrant when they have to.
Yeah. So building a case against somebody once the name comes across the desk is not that difficult.
No, it's not. And I want to give you an example. So I have a buddy of mine. He's the detective. I can't use any specifics, but he's a detective in Manhattan. And these morons, they rob a drug dealer. 7 guys, they hit a drug dealer's house, right? Except what these assholes did, now they're on their Instagram page and they're stunting with all the money and all the keys and all the bullshit, and they're flashing, and they did a robbery wearing a polo. And guess what? They're on their Instagram wearing the same polo. Or they're wearing the same college champion sweatshirt they did the robbery with. How fucking stupid can you be? Like, if that was, I need to write a book. What not to do during a commission of a crime. Maybe people should bestseller, right?
I mean, you would think that it's simple common sense.
But it's not, because people
Don't post your crimes on Instagram.
Don't post your shit on social media. Don't talk on the phone. Your prime cell phone, they could ping. So if you're gonna do a fucking murder, keep your cell phone at home. These are basics, but people don't realize.
Well, and I've even gone as far as to research how they can trace people's burners, because they can detect when a phone, even like a burner phone, is close to another cell phone for an extended period of time. So they can even trace back your burners now.
Yes,
I know everybody thinks that having a burner phone from Walmart or 7-Eleven is going to keep them safe, but that's not the case anymore. It used to be that you could get away with things for a certain period of time. On a long enough timeline, crime always catches up to you. It always catches up to you. I have never seen somebody live a criminal lifestyle and walk away clean and win. You know what I'm saying? The only win is that you get into recovery or you change your life in a way that makes you have a sustainable lifestyle where you're actually being a productive person. Have you ever seen anybody that's walked away, that's gotten away scot-clean?
I've never seen something like that. And the problem is too, is these kids, they get caught up in the cars, the money, the flashy shit, and they just attract attention to themselves, and it's like a vicious cycle. I've never seen somebody walk away clean, scot-free. It's impossible. It's like, have you seen someone in the mafia walk away? I mean, without doing their time or what having their repercussions? Never. I've never seen that.
No, and here's the thing from the inside, from the criminal mindset, you know, you always have these things that you place in front of you, like, man, I've got this goal, and if I get to this, you know, I'll walk. And you get there, and it's not enough.
It's not enough.
Then you hit the next goal, and it's not enough. But nothing fills that hole inside of you. Nothing makes you feel the way that you want to feel. So you keep chasing it, and you keep chasing it, and it's not an extended timeline as to how long it takes you to get caught anymore. How easy is it to use the cameras in New York to be able to trace back crimes?
1, 2, 3. What people don't realize is that you're always on audio or video, some type of video recording. Mm-hmm. And I remember before I retired, and I gave these kids, when I say kids, people out of the academy, advice. Always remember, you always act as if you're always on camera and act as if you're always on phone. Not saying they're going to do crooked shit. Mm-hmm. And not saying they're going to do some unlawful shit. But how does it look if you're fighting with somebody, now the guy's cuffed up, and you give him an extra pop? That's not a good look, man. And guess what? You're getting fired, and you're doing time on top of it. Okay? Absolutely. And rightfully so. Even though, of course, someone's cuffed up, do you still have rights, right? Last time I checked?
Well, I mean, they're innocent until proven guilty in a court of law.
That's why we have
your job as a police officer is to build the case.
Of course.
That, you know, the prosecution can take into the courtroom. Just like as a criminal, my job was to get away. Your job is to catch people. I have to get away all the time. You only have to catch me once.
That's why I volunteered to come down for this interview, man. It was great. It was like two men having an adult conversation on both opposite sides of the spectrum. That's why I was really super pumped to come down here and get this done.
And now I wouldn't be sitting having this conversation with you if I was still a criminal, but I enjoy being able to have this conversation with you, a respectful conversation. I've had very many respectful conversations with police officers, even when I was in my criminal lifestyle, because yeah, we're on opposite ends of the team. You know what I'm saying? But I understood the game that I was playing, and I understood that this is a man doing his job. I'm doing my job. And if he could catch me, that's not him doing anything wrong. That's him doing what he's supposed to do.
It's part of the game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know that. You know the risk. You know the reward, right?
Yeah.
If you're willing to take that risk, so be it.
I've never been mad about the time I got. I've never been mad about the consequences because I knew going in what I was doing. And that's kind of an old part of the convict code that's died out. I feel like everybody's ACAB all the time. And
that's such bullshit. That's nonsense.
Now, let's be real, though. There are cops that do corrupt shit.
100%. I want to touch on that. I'm glad you brought that up. But if you're a piece of garbage working at McDonald's, if you're a fucked up CEO working for IBM, if you're a corrupt lawyer or a corrupt doctor, it doesn't matter what occupation you're doing. If you're a piece of garbage human being, you're a piece of garbage.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, but here's another thing that I want to touch on is, so I did work for a while with GhostSec and Anon, Anonymous. Okay. We would expose pedophiles in social media. And I had an account that was set up with a young girl's picture, and she would tell these people that would approach her in DMs, you know, are you okay with the fact that I'm 14? And these older dudes would be like, yeah, it's no problem. I like that. You know, I'm like, you seem mature for your age. Shit like that. You know what I'm saying? And the things that they would send to this account that they thought was a fucking child, I could only handle it for so long. And I believed in the work that we were doing. I went in with the best fucking intentions, and I cared about what we were doing because we were exposing these people to their bosses, their family, their community. We were making sure that what they were doing behind the scenes was known.
So slow down. So would you set up a meet and greet? They think they're meeting Alyssa.
We would set up things for the meet, but we wouldn't actually meet with them because,
I see.
You know, we were doing this from our location, and these people would get lured in and they would be like wherever. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But our real goal was just to, you know, identify these people, collect evidence on them, and then present that evidence to, you know, most of these were married men. Most of these were men who had prominent jobs. A lot of these were men that were involved really strongly with churches, and we wanted to expose them. But my whole point to this is, after a while, I couldn't do it anymore. I became so jaded. It started to affect my mental health. I saw the world in a different light.
Sure.
And it started to make the world seem like a really dark place to me. You have to see heavy shit every day as a police officer and keep going out. And you have to keep the same mindset. How do you do that? How do you cope with
Very
that?
difficult to do sometimes, but there's also a couple of things. There's organizations that help out police officers because I don't know the exact statistics, but a traumatic event, an average person will have 8 to 9 traumatic events in their entire life. A police officer of 20 years will have 187 is the average statistic, is the average number of traumatic events. Being shot at, fighting with someone for your life. Those are like two examples. Getting into a bad car accident at work. That's why the average cop, especially working in the city, does their 20 years and then they retire because the body just can't take it. You can't take the forced overtime, the sleepless nights with the rest, the poor health, the poor nutrition, drinking not 10 Red Bulls, but drinking all the caffeine and shit to keep up, to working, because your body is meant to sleep at night, right? I worked 2.5, 3 years of midnights. I'd start my shift at 11 o'clock at night and end 7:30, 7:45 in the morning and try and sleep during. Try doing that. And then the birds are outside chirping. But to answer your question about how do you handle stuff like that, these different organizations that officers can use throughout their career, and this you could speak to peer services, counseling that guys and girls to go to. But the problem with that is, JD, is that when you're going through some stuff, people are very hesitant to get help because now you're labeled. Okay, just because someone has a problem doesn't mean they're not right. Maybe they're not right at that current moment, and they're going through something personal, seeing something at work, seeing a little girl killed at work, seeing a bad accident. I saw someone I'll never forget. The guy committed suicide on a train in the subway, and the body was. I responded to the scene, and he's just lifeless on the tracks, looking up at me. And I feel like that was like probably 12, 14 years ago. But I remember it in the back of my mind as if it was yesterday. Mm-hmm. And seeing something like that can affect, I mean, personally, didn't really affect me, but I remember it as if it was yesterday. But if you work in a very busy command, for example, 7-3 precinct, 7-5 precinct, these guys are nonstop running the clock. Like, have you ever seen that documentary, the 7-5? If you haven't, I have highly recommend it. It's about corrupt police officers and what they did back in the day. But they also spoke about during that documentary, and I used to work in that precinct too. You clear 5 calls off your screen, 5 more pile in. You clear 5 calls off that screen, so you're non-friggin' stopped. From the moment you sit in that patrol car, you're running, bro. You're lucky you take a piss, grab a drink. Those calls are constantly coming over that radio, man. By the end of the day, by the end of the shift, you're spent. Oh, and guess what? You have 4 more shifts before you're off for a couple of days. It can be very tiring on the body.
Have you ever had cases where you ran into pedophiles or people that were victimizing children?
I never ran into a pedophile or case like that, but I did have one case that to this day, I take it very personally. A woman was forcibly raped by her child's father, okay? And she had I remember on her forearm, he had burnt her with a cigarette, okay? Took a golf club, threatened to crack her skull open unless she would sleep with him. So the point that really gets to me is so that's my complainant, that's my victim. So we do the rape kit, she has to go to the hospital, follow everything by procedure, right? The problem is when this guy was locked up, he's part of the Russian mob, and somebody got to her, okay? Like, if you press charges, we're gonna kill you, whatever they said to her. So now you have to see, not the ADA, but the head district attorney that's in charge of sex crimes. And I forgot her name, but I remember sitting in her nice little corner office, and she's like, well, we can't prosecute this. I'm like, well, why not? Because your complainant's uncooperative. I'm like, what are you talking about? So she explained to me, they got to her, and she forgot everything, okay? Mm-hmm. And now they have no case. And I got a little pissy with her. She's like, you look like you're upset. I'm like, well, a woman was just forcibly raped. What do you want me to do? I'm like, nothing. And I walked out of her office. That's why, like, guys get burnt out by constantly dealing with heavy cases like that. If you're gonna pick and choose with a case like that, they couldn't prosecute because if the complainant is unwilling to testify, you can't do anything. But if you're dealing with these solid cases and the district attorney is now, we'll throw this out, because fuck these guys don't want to deal with the headache. Rather than do their job and prosecute. And you got some guys, especially with these bail laws now, it's a revolving door in the city. And don't listen to the news. Oh, crime is down. That's fucking bullshit, man. My wife was like, hey, you want to go to Manhattan and see a Broadway show? I'm like, start without me. I'm not going to the city. Are you going to pay me enough to go to Manhattan right now? No fucking way. No way.
Yeah. So, like, a lot of people don't understand how much goes into a case because you have to prove beyond reasonable doubt
Sure.
to 12 unanimous jurors
Sure.
of your peers that somebody is guilty. Beyond a reasonable doubt is a lot more than people think it is. There's a lot of evidence that gets involved in a case.
Oh, sure.
So have you built cases that you felt were solid that they didn't push through?
So I've had some cases that I went all the way up to, I've testified at grand jury countless times. I can't remember it's actually a little nerve-wracking when I walk in and there's a jury of my peers and you could see the people that are sitting there, they're instantly analyzing me, they're instantly eyeballing me, they're instantly judging me, they're making assumptions about me which are not true. I can see it, it's written over their faces. Mm-hmm. And when I sit down, and I know the questions I'm going to be asked, because the district attorney will prep an officer and ask him or her, specific questions. And I could see when I testify, I'm speaking to the attorney, I like to make eye contact with the jury, which is to my right, and I could see the people people on the newspaper. There's some people that are genuinely interested in what I have to say. Other people, like, look at this racist cop. I'm going to call it how I see it. Look at this white racist cop who shaves his head. I shave my head because I lost my hair. I don't shave my head by choice, by the way. Okay. And they just like that stigma of like that assumption about me, which can be very frustrating. But to answer your question, on a patrol level and even on like an anti-crime level, when I worked plain clothes, I didn't do any detective work to build a case, so to speak. But when there was an arrest made, I know my shit was straight. My paperwork was solid. Everything was vouchered properly. I was very meticulous about my paperwork because if that's presented, a defense attorney, they'll pick that shit apart in court. Mm-hmm. They'll pick you apart and they'll embarrass you in court, okay? And they'll nitpick at the most the guy could be guilty as hell, but he might get off on a technicality because if you fucked up the paperwork, I wasn't gonna let that happen on my watch, never. So I made sure all my shit was straight and I got everything done properly. And then if they prosecuted, they prosecute. If not, I did the best I could.
Yeah. It must be frustrating when you dot all your I's and you cross all your T's, yep, and then the case doesn't get pushed through by the prosecution.
It's beyond frustrating because you put all this time and effort into something and making sure your stuff is correct, and then now, okay, you have the arrest. Now you have to come in on your day off for grand jury, time away from your family, time away from your children, days off, forced overtime, and you're doing all these things, right? You're going through the motions. He took a plea, officer. He's going to be probation. It's going to be, it's like, why did I waste my fucking time? Like, why do you need me? Like, it's unbelievable. Like with the plea out, they want to plea out as much as possible, then go to trial. And
trials are expensive.
Yes, they are.
Trials are expensive. Trials
Yes,
are time consuming.
Yes, they are.
Did you ever see tactics being used where they would stack more charges than they really thought they could get through to be able to push for a plea bargain?
See, I've never seen something like that, but I'll tell you that you could, as an officer, you could charge whatever you want to charge. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you a prime example. So the guy's smoking pot, right? But he sees the cops approaching, he takes the lit marijuana joint and he'll throw it, he'll toss it. Well, now he's destroying evidence. I would hit you with that charge, but the district attorney would be on the phone, and it's a felony charge, by the way. Mm-hmm. Oh, we're dropping it. I'd be like, all right, whatever. You could indict a ham sandwich. You could do whatever you want. Whether it sticks is a different story. Yeah. I could hit you with 19, 20, 22 different charges. At the end result, the affidavit's this big because they don't want it. They're just scratching everything off. They don't want to deal with it, and they're getting rid of everything.
Do you think it's just that the system's overwhelmed?
It can be. A lot of these district attorneys, at least from what I saw, 22, 23 years old out of college, they have 45 cases, and the cases just keep piling, and they need to either close it out, they need to plea it out. I think a lot of them are overworked at the same time. Yeah, definitely.
With your experience, what do you think that we could do to implement better things to have our communities be safer?
Well, we need to have a real conversation with some of these community leaders and the police department, and you need to let the cops do their job. You need the cops to be cops and not have the fear in the back of their minds of, oh my God, if I do something, I'm going to get prosecuted, I'm going to get fired, I might get killed. To answer your question, we need more police officers. We need better training for the police department as well. And we also need to have, an understanding where you work. You need to have certain officers in certain types of communities because And I'm going to call it how I see it. I myself might not understand certain types of cultures, like a Haitian culture or a Chinese or an Oriental culture. I wouldn't understand their beliefs or their whatever holidays they celebrate. And maybe an Oriental officer or an Asian officer, obviously they understand that better, but they are better to serve that community working there. Someone like myself, yes, I would work in that community and I would do a good job as a police officer. Maybe not the right area for myself to work in.
Yeah. Okay, I could see that. So Steve, have you ever gone out of your way because you got a feeling about somebody that you ran into and seen the effects of putting your extra time into the community come into fruition?
You know what? Great question. I'm happy you asked me that. And yeah, I did actually. Going back 10, 12 years ago, I got a domestic violence call, and the father called the cops on his son because this kid was running with the wrong crew. Okay, concerned father, and I get to the apartment, and right away, the kid, white officer, black kid, wearing baggy jeans, baggy clothes. But I saw past. When I was speaking to this kid, I saw past all that. I didn't see him as a black kid. I saw him as a human being. I didn't see him as a hood rat. I saw it because of the baggy clothes. We took the report, domestic violence report. Shout out to Freddie, by the way. We took the report, and 2 weeks go by, and I'm like, yo, we're kind of slow tonight. We're in the area. Let's knock on Martin's front door. And he answers. His son's name is Dylan, by the way. So Freddie and I, we go speak to Dylan, give him that older brother tough love. That crew you're running with, they ain't your boys. You think if they get caught up in a burglary, they ain't gonna rat you out? They ain't gonna dime you out in a heartbeat? They're gonna dime you pretty quick. So we gave this kid tough brotherly love, all right? And you fast forward in the story, went to the Marines to this day, okay? I don't know if he's still in the Marines. And he took every single law enforcement exam that he could. And we turned this kid's life completely around. And we didn't do it because I didn't know I would be here 12 years ago today. Mm-hmm. I did it because of this. And we did it because we actually genuinely cared. And I want the public to know shit like that happens all the time. It's unfortunate. It's that 1% of those assholes out there wearing the uniform that do the fucked up shit, and that gets published on the news. And you see the poor side of these officers. So okay, mm-hmm. The news doesn't publicize the good shit that cops do, and it's done flawlessly a million times throughout the course of a year that the media never get to see. But I'm glad that we turned this kid's. You know what that cost to me? Nothing. It cost me 5 minutes of my time, and I truly believe we saved this kid's life.
And you had that positive of an impact on him that you can measurably see it. Now, let me ask you this. If you catch somebody, just generally law enforcement, you catch somebody at something and you get them to roll on the people that they're with, do you respect that person for rolling?
You know what? That's a great question. I can't answer that. I can't say yes and I can't say no. As a man, I'm like, you're rolling on your boy, like, you're a punk. I'm sorry, dude.
Yeah.
As a cop, I have no opinion. But like, if me and you and Mike, for example, are in on something, I'm a big boy. I can take a pinch. Okay? I'm gonna keep my mouth shut and take it like a man. The guys that flip, you're a punk. I'm sorry, you're a punk.
Yeah, and so like, I'm not somebody who endorses the criminal lifestyle. I make that very clear across the board. But if you sign up for a ride and it goes somewhere you didn't think it was going to go,
oh well,
and then you fuck your people over it, you're a bitch, bro.
You're a bitch.
You're a bitch, period.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of times people think when they get in that situation, oh, I'm gonna get out of this and I'm still gonna be respected. Like, even the law enforcement officers that are prompting you towards doing that so that they can get other people that need to be out of the community, they still think you're a punk, bro. It is what it is. I had an experience when I started working at a sober living. It was the first time I was made a manager, and it was the first time that there was no one else staff there. And dude got caught with drugs, and he had been given multiple chances. He'd had a couple dirty UAs, and I had to make a choice. And I believed this kid in his heart of hearts that he wanted to change. I really did. I honestly did. But at the same point, he had brought drugs into a facility that was closed, where everybody had made an agreement not to bring drugs because we were all there for the common purpose of saving our fucking lives, of turning our shit around. So I had to make the choice between what's good for the individual or what's good for the community.
And I can only imagine how difficult that might have been.
It was a difficult decision, and I think that that's the same decision that a lot of cops run into, that a lot of judges run into. And, you know, I had that epiphany of that weight when it comes down to, you know, I could really do something good for the individual, but is it worth the risk to the community? And I also at the same time was facing my cases, and I had a judge who had taken that risk on me. But at the end of the day, this kid brought 12 bags of fentanyl into a closed fucking facility. He risked everybody there's life.
Well,
it was enough fentanyl to kill the whole building.
Shame on him for putting you, for putting other people in that position. That's on him.
I understand the disease and I understand how it can affect people in crazy ways, but at that point, it wasn't worth the risk to the community.
Yeah, that's, you know, it's unfortunate. Do you know how that guy ever turned out?
I still see him every once in a while on social media posting.
Yeah.
So I know that he's alive. I don't know what his personal circumstances are, unfortunately.
No, it's, you know, it's, and like I was saying, like before, my cousin, I understand the disease because I experienced it with a family member of mine, and it just, when I thought he was getting better, he just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And once you thought like he hit rock bottom, he went underneath. And to this day, he's now 5.5, 6 years sober. And it's just like the most, for me to, I was driving over here from Long Island, and I'm like, I got to meet JD, and I got to tell him that story, because right here, it's like, and it's not, and people that are watching right now, you guys are struggling. I mean, I can't talk like JD talks, but if you're struggling with anything, gambling, Sex Anonymous, which is a disease, maybe you can edit that part out.
No, like, so gambling, you know, sexual disorders, eating disorders,
drinking,
it
alcoholism.
all comes down to mental disorders, and most of them are trauma based.
Oh, sure.
Most of them are trauma based mental disorders. And first off, I want to take a second just to give a shout out to Eric in his 5 years, man. I'm very proud of you, man. Keep doing what you're doing. That's all the time that we have for today, Steve. Thank you so much for sitting. I appreciate your time. This has been a great
interview, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rob. I appreciate it.
You guys, until next time, one love. Be good or be good at it.